Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Grounded on Clouds podcast. This is take 2 because my phone ran out of storage. And we're here in Pai, Thailand, at an organic farm with friends. My name is Josh, and this is my constant co-host and best friend, Ray.
Hello,
And
everybody.
That second word, I wasn't expecting it.
Me neither.
And this is our great friend and avid Ayurvedic practitioner guide, as well as raw vegan, currently on a 15-day water fast. Day 15 of a 40-day water fast. I want to get that correct. So yeah, he's very close to enlightenment. This is Simba.
Hey, everybody. What's up? It's good to be here. Much love. Yeah, the water is feeling great. And I'm eating water and air pretty much.
How does it feel to be sitting next to Ray while she's just eating this Burmese salad? And yeah.
Oh my God, so good. Like when you were eating earlier, I felt so amazing. And then like now that she's eating, like the smell, it's so good. I feel like I'm getting nurtured through it. It's so good. I'm so happy to be around it, you know?
Yeah, just as you told me earlier, just start fasting and you don't have to be jealous of anyone because you're constantly eating yourself.
May I add, you're eating fat tissue. Fat tissue after 3 to 5 days. So
Thank you. The scientist had to come in and make sure we were not telling any lies on his watch.
Is it recording?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so we're here at this organic farm, and Ray had a genius idea of something that we could talk about that just fit our situation so perfectly. So what did you want to talk about, Ray? Okay, I'll speak because Ray's currently chewing salad. So Ray wanted to talk about our shadows. And you may be asking, shadows? Do you mean the silhouettes on the ground that are created when an object is encountered with light and then is blocking a portion of the light? No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our spiritual, psychological, and emotional shadows, the insecurities, the things that we're oftentimes afraid to talk about, and the things that we're afraid to look at. So, yeah, what is a shadow to you, Simba?
You know, something that just came to me right now is that, quote you guys might have heard of, you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of people think that they don't have any shadows. What do you mean? I'm all good. And I was mentioning this in the first take we took, that, you know, none of us are perfect. And of course, we're going to have things to work through. But we can only be able to work through these shadows once we acknowledge that, yeah, there is something that can be improved here in our experience. And that is related to our shadows. Like Ray mentioned in the first one, that I have to just repeat what she said, you know, like in regards to your insecurities and your fears, you know, that connects so much to it. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that quote, actually. You don't know what you don't know. Reminds me of Donald Rumsfeld, the unknown unknowns. And yeah, it takes a lot of bravery, I think, and courage. It has for me, at least, to look inside. So, yeah, I know we've been talking about them, but you may be wondering what they are for us, so you can just kind of get an example. So I'll tell you about one of mine. What I've realized recently is one of my darkest shadows, and the one that was most difficult for me to look at, was fear of abandonment. Not to mince any words. And for me, this fear of abandonment materialized in so many subtle ways that the more I looked at it, the more I realized how expansive it is and how it subtly nudged me in directions and decisions and how I could connect so many things to it. So, for example, I'm trying to pursue a career in music, and I still have so much fear around getting on stage and being seen. And I was able to be aware of this fear, like you could call it stage fright or something. And, you know, that's like, it's kind of, I don't know if I'd call that a shadow as much as like, it's something that's easy to digest almost because so many people have it. They're like, yeah, I'm frightened to be on stage. But if we look deeper and look at what's actually happening, for me, I realized that I'm afraid to be seen because in that moment, I could be judged, and specifically, I could be judged as someone who wasn't worthy of love. Or in that moment, depending on my performance, I could be deemed unworthy of love, and that is terrifying to me. It's more terrifying than death, honestly. So once I started to look deeper at my shadows, I started to realize and get a better understanding of also of where these fears are coming from and where they're born from. And yeah, it gave me a lot of perspective, but there was also a lot of tears and pain because, that fear of abandonment is not just innately in me. It comes from experiences that are difficult to look at from my childhood and from my teenhood and moments where I felt like I was abandoned. I mean, there's no other way to get a fear of abandonment than feeling as if you are abandoned, feeling as if you're alone completely. Yeah. That's just an example for me. Anybody else like to share anything about their shadows?
Whoa. I feel like I love talking about this because when we talk about it, I feel that it's an opportunity to see these different parts of us and really hold these different parts of us in compassion and love and just recognition. And the more that I talk about the difficult moments that I've been through and the struggles that I've been through, the more I see that we're all struggling with the same things. And I love what Simba said earlier in the last take, where you were talking about how it's almost necessary for us to kind of go forward, is to have these moments of reflection and see these different parts of ourselves, because they are playing in these different parts of our consciousness. And for me, investigating the subconscious and the unconscious and realizing how these different fears, insecurities, just darker feelings are holding me back from fully stepping into who I'm meant to be. And I've done these exercises where I've kind of allowed myself to, whether through journaling, visualizations, I've allowed myself to investigate these different parts of myself and really see them. And in those moments, I also do visualizations where I hold those parts of me and I hold them and I let them cry. I let them tell me what they need. And it's been such an incredible journey. So I feel like talking about our shadows and what we struggle with, but also how we're holding ourselves in those moments or how we're moving past it. And yeah, just opening up the conversation for us to start to talk about these things, about what we're struggling with, about, I really struggle with my shadows because I feel that they're holding me back. I resent them, But as soon as I say it out loud and I say, okay, actually, I don't need to resent these parts of me. And there's other parts, for example, the one that is very kind of calculating and worrying. Well, the worrying is just wanting to know more and have a better understanding of the full picture. So if I see that there's the part of me that worries, and then there's the part of me that's understanding that I do want to know a lot of these different things and then move from that space. I'm not feeling as eloquent with this right now, but it's kind of like there's the part of it that holds you back. And then there's, when you see it, you can see that actually this part of you can help you. When you hold it, when you love that part of you, you see that actually it wants to serve you. It just also wants to be seen and held. I don't know if that resonates with you guys.
No, that completely resonates with me. And I think you bring up a really important point that I think I skirted over a bit, in that every shadow is not just a shadow. It's a part of, it's a part of the light. Like, just like how a shadow, if there was no light, there would be no shadow. And if there was no shadow, there would be no light. And like in the example that I gave of my fear of abandonment, that part of me, this shadow, is the part of me that wants to receive love. It so desperately wants to receive love, and that's such a beautiful thing, to be open to receiving love. And when we don't look at our shadow, when we don't acknowledge it, and like Ray was saying, we don't listen to it, we don't give this part of ourselves the opportunity to fully develop. And that's part of why I'm saying the fear for me of being seen. Part of, if I'm afraid of being seen because of this, I'm not willing to acknowledge this shadow of a fear of abandonment, then I'm going to essentially create like a restraining order within my own psyche, within my own body, of this shadow. And I will try to avoid it at all costs. And in that, my fear of this shadow will be controlling the directions where I go. And I won't be open to receiving love. Like I will not be able to receive love as much as possible, because I'm not allowing this part of me to be complete. It's almost like I saw a part of me and I said, I want this part, but not that part. And in doing that, I made a part of myself not whole. I know that wording was a bit confusing, but yeah, to look at our shadow and accept it with love, and to hear it and whatever it has to say, and still understand that it's trying its best. And our favor is it's very illuminating process that can bring up a lot, but it's beautiful in my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that beautiful stuff, guys. Some things came up to me that I also want to express, which is, first of all, that our shadows are something that really come to light when we put ourselves in a vulnerable enough space to notice them. And that usually happens not just when we're by ourselves. It happens a lot with our experiences in life, from the things we experience and the people we experience it with. And so I'm guessing the people listening and you guys would agree that a lot of the shadows have came up from when you were in situations where you have to be vulnerable with when you're vulnerable with other people. And when you're vulnerable with these other people, these shadows of yours come up more easily because you're able to be vulnerable without the mask. When we're walking through life in everyday life, right? Like, we're meeting people and we're like, oh, hi, how are you? Amazing, awesome. Like, it's almost kind of a mask, right? Unless we choose to drop our guard and be vulnerable with that person, to truly let ourselves get deep with there. Of course, for some people that could happen right away if they have an instant connection, or some people that could take a bit longer to get to that deeper connection. But the point is that when you get to that point, when you have a deeper connection with someone, you end up being more vulnerable. And then this is when these shadow aspects come out, because you are being truly yourself. And I bring this up because I've noticed this a lot too in my past relationships, and especially in my current relationship, where I've never felt closer to anyone else I've ever felt in my life. And I know I've done a lot of shadow work and personal development work, etc., to get me to the point where I am now. But like we said earlier, where none of us are ever perfect. And it's really interesting how even in my current relationship, I've noticed that even though I could compose myself very well, sometimes it's hard to be conscious of my reality so that I could react in the way that I want to react. Because a lot of people in this world, their reality is based on their perception. So if you choose to react in a negative way to something, then your perspective of reality will be negative. But if you choose to be conscious and be aware, one can choose to also have the perspective of the big picture and not react to something that really might not be a big deal, but you're reacting because it connects to your shadows. It reminds me of one of my favorite stories, the Three Laughing Monks stories, where these three laughing monks go through China, and anything that ever happens, they just laugh at, you know? And at the very end of the story, like these people, they were revered all over China. And at the end of the story, in one village, a monk died. People from all over China came to mourn and all that. And then when they saw the two other monks, they were just laughing. Because they're like, oh yeah. They're like, someone asked the two monks, like, why are you laughing? Your friend that you've been with for so long is dead. And they're like, oh, we made a bet yesterday on who would die first. So, you know, it's really important to remember the big picture here, that we could laugh at anything in life. It's up to us how we want to experience this life. And sometimes we get so caught up in the seriousness of it, connected to our shadows, and may react poorly to things, right? May react not in the way that we'd like to react, even though consciously we know better. Sometimes we're not always conscious, right? I think it's said that like 90% or whatever of our daily actions, of the thousands of things we do in a day in our brain, a lot of it is subconscious, right? So it's all about trying to do things as consciously as possible. And also, I think, trying to help and improve the subconscious mind to be able to react in a way subconsciously that you like.
Well, I have something that
Yeah.
I really resonate with that. And I can see why, as you're talking about this, the idea of that, like the distance, or basically so much of what we do in like meditation and spirituality and stuff is trying to create distance from how we react to a situation, like kind of the distance of, oh, I'm aware of what's happening. And then you can choose to react, and basically creating that pause moment, that distance where you have free will, or I mean, essentially power, because you're choosing how to react, and that reaction creates the reality. And so much of when we choose not to look at our shadows, where essentially these shadows will hijack us at some point. Like the fear of abandonment for me will take over in that moment, and it'll take over, and I'll just like react, and I'll be like, oh, I want to like walk this direction. Oh, I'm not going to go there. Oh, I'm going to make a decision to stay home. Like in those moments, it's taking over, and I can't tell it's taking over because I've chosen not to look at it. I've chosen to make it invisible in my mind if I'm choosing not to look at it. And so I'm essentially being conquered without the awareness that I am, that like someone else is now driving, and I think I'm still driving because I've chosen to just imagine this being doesn't exist. And yeah, so I resonate with so much of what you're saying, because being aware of them allows you to notice when you're being hijacked. And that's step one for sure. Then you can be like, hey, I'm being hijacked. Now you can choose to do something about it. And maybe the first few times, or, for me, like the first many times, you're still going to get hijacked, but you're going to be like, I'm getting on to you. I'm figuring this out, and soon I'm going to and eventually it starts to get like, oh yeah, I see them coming. And then they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm just going to like lock the door and stuff like that. And you start to create more and more distance. Yeah. Wow.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that really quick.
Please.
That, you mentioned like, that's like the first step, right? To acknowledge and be conscious of it, like to be conscious of your shadow. So then you could like start to be more aware of all these things and how you live life and how you react and perceive. But I'd like to also add like, okay, so what's the end goal here? Like, why are we talking about this? And I've heard actually from another coach I had that your trauma / shadow is your gift.
Yeah.
It truly is your gift. It is there for you for a reason. It is part of your life journey. You were given this life with the certain traumas and shadows that you received at some point for you to be able to work through them if you so choose to bring out as a gift to the rest of the world in whichever way that magnificently happens. Did you want to say something?
I can.
Well, I totally agree with that. And I actually, as I was walking through the streets of Pi yesterday, I just had this very clear realization that because you know how trauma kind of works in that, like, oh, these memories are kind of chosen and they get stored in the body and they get stuck. And I was just kind of flashing back through my life, which is just something anyone does on a walk. And I was seeing all the moments, like still frames of when things have happened. And I remember them so vividly to this day, no matter when they happened in my life. And I was seeing the strings of continuity and the ways in which all of these were connected so much to my greatest purpose and my greatest passion, just like exactly like you're saying, the fear of abandonment for me is so central because a huge part of my life is, can you click the thing? It's fine. A huge part of my life is giving love to people. Is so much of it is showing love to people and showing people that they are loved, and not just by me, but by God and by the universe and by themselves and by everything, that everything is really just fucking in love with it, with each other and itself, because we're all the same. And that is such a central part of me. And I didn't understand that when I was, like 8 years old and experienced this traumatic thing, and someone at school like bullied me or like hit me, or like someone I really cared about said something that really hurt me. I didn't understand that, that was the reason why it stuck with me. But it is, like, looking back in retrospect, I can see it stuck with me and it traumatized me because it's so central to my power. And yeah, so I 100% agree with you. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel so grateful to be in the presence of so much wisdom, and just the way that both of you are, have taken from so many different sources, nature, other teachers, your own experiences, just so much wisdom from everywhere. And what I love about this podcast is that it comes, and what you were saying, just let's do it natural, let's do the flow, because you get to really see expressing something very naturally, and having all these different sources of wisdom come through and be shared in this way. And yeah, it's really interesting to be talking about this and to kind of see all the different nuances of what our paths look like. And I feel there's so much similarities between all three of us. And then maybe those of you watching as well can relate to what it feels like to explore our shadows and to explore this life, and to kind of have it be a holistic, everything, and live with such integrity, where we're looking at how much the subconscious, the unconscious is influencing our actions. And it's hard. And also for me, I feel, to expose that sometimes I get stuck in the negative stories, in the shadow stories. And I feel like such an important part of this journey is releasing it through dance and laughing and not dwelling so much on the stories. Another one of our really good and super inspiring friends, Brittany, was talking about how it's so important to look at these things, feel it, and drop it. And looking at it, feeling it, and dropping it, and not getting so caught up in the healing process and making it such a big, drawn out, complex thing. So I feel like that's one of my shadows, is that my shadow almost enjoys feeling this feeling of heaviness. Wow. And I don't want to get stuck there. And so dancing and singing and laughter helps move that energy and bring me back to where I feel my being is meant to be very joyful. And this is at the core. But also understanding, for example, I've also been just doing this shadow work or whatever you might call it. I've been crying a lot. And one thing that's also come up for me is that I feel that I'm finally letting myself feel so much sadness that I didn't let myself feel my whole life. So it's a balance of not getting too caught up in the healing process and making it be so complicated and so drawn out, and also letting myself really feel very intensely things that I haven't been allowing myself to feel. And we keep talking about coming back to the heart, and letting the heart guide the intuition, because I feel so much of my life I've wanted a very specific laid out process, and I've wanted structure. And then a part of me is just breaking free of all of it and embracing a whole different side of being that I haven't allowed myself to explore so much.
I have something to say.
Wow. That is so beautiful. We are running out of time, but there's just something I want to say that was inspired by that, and because I resonated so much with it, that this healing process, I think it's so incredible and so important, and it can be difficult to dive into. But I think what gets forgotten, like exactly what you said, is that it doesn't have to be serious all the time. And that, yeah, at times it needs to be serious, but also, one, it doesn't have to be serious, and one, it doesn't actually have to be separate. Then when we're dancing, when we're laughing, when we're connecting with friends and just talking like this, even if we were just talking about, you know, like the rice field over there and like what that cow poop looked like or something, and in that moment, we could be healing our shadows. We could be healing our trauma. We can be healing our trauma just by like doing the work that we're supposed to be doing, or, you know, making money. Like everything is a yoga. Everything is our spiritual practice. I think that's the actual end goal, and to not compartmentalize everything or not compartmentalize anything. That's not, yeah. Go dance, go have fun, go be joyous, and realize that you're doing the work at the same time. And then sit down and, you know, with your journal and write about your thing and realize, yeah, that's doing the work too. And it's all doing the work. But yeah, Ray has to go circle. So we're running out of time because she needs to go do the work. But is there anything you want to say before we end, Simba, our special guest?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Ray. Some things occurred to me there, that I just thought was important to voice out, which is that, you know, a part of what you talked about came up to me as like, yeah, that's victimhood and shadow work. And that's an important thing I want to bring up, because some of you guys listening might not know what shadow work is and what does that entail. So victimhood, kind of to like what Ray was talking about, is kind of connected there. And yeah, it's a lot of people could be in victimhood by thinking like, oh, why me? Why me? Well, another question to pose is like, why not you? Why not you? You know, like it's part of you. It's part of your mission. And yes, I believe everything in life, the best things in life, the best way to do things when it comes to physically healing the body as well, which is what I'm passionate about, and other things, everything should be simple. Nothing needs to be complicated. It really just is as simple as just doing. Another coach of mine that I worked with would say, just do the doing. All you have to do is do the doing, right? Instead of contemplating, thinking, overthinking, which I know I've been a victim of, and that victimhood's just overthinking it, and just do the doing. That's it. Just actually do it. And with that, I gotta sign off with saying that love is the answer for everything. And that connects to, I think, everything we're talking about here and everything else. For every little thing in this world, every problem, love is the answer. Whichever way that love unconditionally manifests is for you to decide. But love truly does fix everything.
Thank you so much, Simba. And just a really quick reflection that just on things you were saying earlier, and that is that this whole reality is created by our own perception, and you can choose to manifest a reality that is complex, or you can choose to manifest one that is simple. And I'm going to manifest one that's simple. Thank you for that reminder, because I needed that. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a Organic Farm edition of Grounded on Clouds podcast with our friend Simba. You can follow him at Simply Heals on Instagram. And we'll have Instagram up soon for Grounded on Clouds and actual content and stuff on there soon. But any last words, Ray?
You want to take a deep breath together?
Yes.
You want?
Yeah. Let's all just take a deep breath, because that was that's a heavy conversation. So inhale. Exhale, let it all out. Maybe one more. Inhale. Exhale. Let it all out. Oh. Okay. Love is the answer. Organic is the answer. And we'll see y'all later. Thank you for listening and watching. Bye-bye.